historical position SK holds in European League of Legends. Now, SK has always been a huge influence in worldwide esports, but was also one of the original EU LCS teams. And funnily enough, my own esports roots trace all the way back to SK in 2012. Now, the SK of back then was a lineup led by someone you might remember, SK Ocelot, known for his explosive personality and playstyle in the mid lane. And he helped elevate SK to the top of European League of Legends. And back then even, Fnatic versus SK and Xpeke versus Ocelot was seen as El Clásico, rather. And it really seemed like SK's story would keep trending upwards in the EU LCS. The lineup after that of Freddy, Svenskr, and Jessis, Candy Panda, and Enrated crushed the 2014 Spring Split, topping the regular season and grabbing the silver medal in playoffs behind, of course, Fnatic, keeping El Clásico alive. Now, they kept that momentum going throughout the 2015 Spring Split with another first place in the regular season. But after that, it gets murky. SK fails in playoffs, drops in the standings in summer, and doesn't even make it to the 2015 World Championship. Not only that, it goes from bad to worse, as SK fails to secure a spot in the 2016 EU LCS after failing to beat, how poetic, Ocelot's Gamers 2 in the promotion tournament. And then, silence for 3 years. And after 3 years of absence in the EU LCS, SK finally makes their grand return to the scene by joining the LEC in 2019. And they came back with a bang, a rookie-filled lineup with Selfmade at the helm, impressed in the Spring Split, and even made it straight into the playoffs, something they technically hadn't done since summer 2015. But summer wasn't as good. SK missed playoffs, Selfmade ended up leaving, and SK was left to rebuild, wondering if they had already reached their ceiling. And that's unfortunately what it looked like at the start of 2020. The loss of Selfmade was heavily felt, and the lineup of Sakurai, Trick, Jenax, Crownshot, and Limit ended the Spring Split on a measly 4-14 scoreline. And that's why SK was such an unlikely and surprising playoff contender coming into summer. But the lineup, now with Jenax in the top lane and rookie ZaZee in the mid lane, looked reinvigorated and looked like they could take down just about anyone in a best-of-one. On the back of super carry Crownshot, who has really come into his own this summer, SK is now in a shared third place in pole position for playoffs. And they even took down the Mad Lions just last week as cherry on the cake. And maybe it's because I started my road to esports with SK all those years ago. And maybe it's because I have an unbridled faith in super carry Crowny. But to me, SK is not just a playoff hopeful. They can be so much more than that. Let's see what they can do versus Misfits.
Thank you very much, Sjokz. An excellent history lesson, of course, on SK Gaming. And if they want to hold on to that pole position, every single win is going to matter because the split is so incredibly tight. But on the opposite side of the table, Vedius, Misfits coming in with a few swaps this week, one that a lot of fans have been asking for.
Yes, Denyk returns to the roster. Now, for those that have only been watching us for the Summer Split, in spring, Denyk was the main support of Misfits, and he received a lot of praise. He was one of the big playmakers of the team. He and Razork worked extremely well together, and they were a large part of what got Misfits so many dominant early game advantages. And that's why when coming into this split, it was announced that DOS would be the starting support. I think there were many question marks around why they would want to make that shift after it seemed that Denyk had such a great start to the LEC.
And of course, this week on Euphoria, while the episode did not air, I had the chance to speak with Amazing, and he shared some insight there, and that DOS has been viewed as the stronger laning support, maybe potentially the more mechanically gifted support. But Denyk, something that Misfits may not have appreciated at the start of the season, was how much of a voice he was in the team for bigger, more proactive plays. So what we have to keep our eyes on today is that the case for Misfits? Do we see a more controlled, more put-together Misfits as they go toe-to-toe with SK and Crownshot as well? This is a man looking to prove himself in the eyes of the LEC.
Yeah, and you're going to be hearing it a lot for the next 5 games of the LEC, but every game really does count. And while we will not be starting a hashtag, it's worth noting that for both these teams, this game is extremely important. A loss today definitely changes the standings up because of how close everything is. So, without further ado, let's talk about the draft. Bard immediately being taken off the board. For those that don't know, Bard has kind of skyrocketed to the priority list here in Europe. I think that we're a little bit behind LCK, if I'm being honest. Drakos, it feels like the LCK picked up Bard very early on into the split, and now EU is catching on, and now permaban. No more will we really get to see much Bard, which is a shame, because I feel like he has been a very strong and enjoyable support to watch this.
He's my favorite support in the game. He is so much fun to play. You could not tilt playing a champion who walks around, stuns people, picks up charms, and slaps people with meeps. That said, he is probably the only remaining S-tier support for anyone who watched the Freak show. I heavily agree with Freak on that point. Bard seems to do it all in the current meta, so taking him off the table makes a lot of sense.
I will say that Thresh is still S-tier for me.
All right.
I think especially here in Europe, it has been a very dominant support, and we are still going to see it banned off the board. So Kalista, we didn't see it banned last game, still going to be a high priority. Not really a surprise against Kobbe, someone that at the very beginning of the split already demonstrated how dominant he can be on the champion, but also I think that while Misfit have struggled, their early game has not really been the problem. There have been games where they've just kind of thrown games away in the early, but this team I think is actually really good when it comes to early game objective control and also just playing through the early game.
Struggling to close has been the bigger story,
Yes.
so as long as Misfits can hold on to that consistent early game, our eyes are on their mid and late game. If they build a lead, can they close it out cleanly? Now, though, as we look at the draft, we have two pretty reliable champions picked up by SK Gaming, not really giving a lot away about what their composition wants to do. Both the Ezreal and Orianna not showing a lot of cards here. On the opposite side for Misfits Gaming, though, we've got aggressive picks, honestly, moving forward, diving back with a pick like the Kai'Sa here. Going to be exciting to watch.
So it's really interesting because I was having a conversation with a couple pros earlier in the week, and they were telling me that Kai'Sa's a bit of a bait pick into the Ezreal because right now there aren't a lot of meta champions that can really help facilitate Kai'Sa when it comes to actually diving onto the backline. And when we look at this comp right now, you can notice that, sure, Sett is actually designed to dive onto the backline. He literally brings a front line into the backline for you, which can synergize quite nicely with the Kai'Sa. But I want to see other things that can go in with this Kai'Sa. And we know that Denyk was famous for his Rakan in the past, so I'm looking if this will be a direction or option that Misfits is going to go for as we enter the second half of the
And of course, taking away the Nautilus, big from the side of SK Gaming, limiting point-and-click reliable CC that would be a path for Kai'Sa to make her way onto the backside of any team fight. But Misfits Gaming kind of debating what they want to go with here. Historically, of course, important to note that Kai'Sa was considered a really strong counter pick into the Ezreal in patches past, as she could just leap on, she could follow his arcane shift out of fights. But Misfits Gaming limiting some of the disruption options in the Trundle. And now finally the Fiddlesticks ban coming out. I like it, giving that respect over to Razork.
Suggesting as well that this Sett is a flex pick while we do typically see it in the jungle. Expectations from SK are that, hey, we don't really believe you. And so just to be sure, we're going to take that one off the board. I was going to mention the Ornn ban, and I'm happy to see it come through from Misfits. I think that SK's comp right now really just wants that big, beefy engage. It's the only thing that it's missing. We have seen them play Sion before, and I wouldn't be surprised if we did see the Sion come out again from this SK composition.
Wouldn't either. Actually really like Jenax on that champion. Felt like he was an excellent team fighter and actually a contributor overall to the team in the matches previously. Now, however, we are going to have the Lee Sin coming in for Razork, so explosive plays coming out of the jungle, but more importantly, Dan committing the Sett onto the top side of the map here. And Denyk still waiting to see what the final pick is. Still, of course, technically could be the Sett support, but it feels like that champion is heavily telegraphed and not very highly valued right now in the LEC.
What will they go for? We talked about the Rakan earlier. Will this be the direction that they take? I'm trying to think of what other supports are available.
Sett?
Ooh,
oh, wow.
Okay,
I flame it and immediately gets locked in.
Okay, so, I mean, Sett support was a big thing last split. I don't think we've even seen it once this split, Drakos, if I'm being honest. We're going to have our stats double-check that, but this will mean that the Gangplank is going to come out in the top
One time.
lane. Oh, it was played once?
That might have been a different season. Never mind. That's all of this year. I'll wait for stats. Me Googling on my own, not nearly as reliable. It's been played at some point this year. That's all I can give you. But there's the Sion that we talked about, and we will get a chance to talk more about the Sett support in this game. And thus, it's Gangplank support. Just kidding. And ready to see what it can do. It certainly does have the setup CC necessary for Kai'Sa, but not my favorite support pick, if I'm honest.
I will say that on first glance, Misfits comp seems a bit weird. I want to think about it a little bit more, but just my initial impressions are,
Stats
like
is confirmed. Week 3 for DOS as you gather your thoughts. So it was played this season. I was unintentionally correct. Thank you, Marcus.
Good job.
For that one.
But what I do want to say is SK's comp very traditional, also very SK. I know that you're not a fan of Trick on Kha'Zix, but they have had success on it in the past. I love Yuumi plus Kha'Zix, personally. I think that duo is very strong. And I think that it's your very conventional front to back, while you also have backline threat with the Kha'Zix, which against things like a Syndra, I think is very good. So we're going to have some fun. We're going to be jumping in for our second game of the day. It's Misfits versus SK.
And here we are, Misfits versus SK. There's, of course, a lot of different things to talk about here in the early game, but for now, we'll keep an eye on any potential level 1 invades. Looks like we will have Kha'Zix starting, well, maybe just warding on the top side. Unclear to me. Thought for sure maybe he's going to back off, allow Crownshot to get a little bit of early lane prio here, but clearly still debating his options as we take a look at the runes. And phase rush for Denyk on the bottom side, obviously standard for the jungle set, but not something that we always see bot lane.
Halo
Usually,
Blades on Kai'Sa too.
Yeah, so but a lot of engage here coming in from the Misfits bot lane in terms of keystone choices. They are very much looking to fight early.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what you expect, right? When you're running a Sett support, you're really all about going for those early skirmishes. Kai'Sa was a big proponent of the Sett bot lane.
True,
Do you remember Mad Lions used to run a lot of Syndra Sett in the bot lane, and oh boy, that's a strong 2v2. So I'm really surprised that they've paired it up with the Kai'Sa, who I don't typically associate strong early games with.
Important to note that because the Yuumi's attached to the Ezreal more often than not, that the Ezreal does effectively isolate himself, making the Kai'Sa Q do a ton of damage early on. And now we've got some aggressive early pathing coming in from Razork as well. It will not be a red buff first, but he could potentially look for an early gank bot lane. Crownshot and Limit for now fighting for a bit of lane prio here.
Yeah, let's actually just focus on the junglers in this early game because they're clearly going to have a lot of impact, especially with how the pathing is working out. Now, typically, when you have a Gangplank, something that he can do is get very fast push priority in the 1v1 because he trades so hard. And we'll notice that after, already a flash in.
I like it. Crownshot now going to be in trouble. One more stack, one more stack. Are they going to commit for Kobbe? Doesn't want to flash forward. Didn't want to proc it.
Okay, well, you know, that was what, 2 summoners traded for 3? I think that's a pretty favorable trade. So let's kind of like go back to the junglers, because I ultimately think the reason why that was able to happen is because of that level 1 play. Remember that if you're going to sacrifice your flash at level 1, then what you're basically doing is you're saying, hi jungler, I'm ready to be ganked now. So by splitting the map, what Razork has done is he's provided a lot more safety for this bot lane of Misfits. He started on the blue buff, he's pathed towards his red, and Trick had 2 options. Trick could either identify that this had happened and then do a cross map and then potentially look for an invade onto the blue buff, which of course is risky when Syndra and Gangplank do have the push, or he can just continue his path, have no idea, and he's going to path towards bot side and be behind in camps on Razork. Meanwhile, Kobbe and Denyk are going to be able to get an early push off and hopefully get the wave bouncing back in their favor.
Have to keep our eyes on if Trick wants to go for a play here. A second he hits the Scryer's Bloom, that they'll know that he's in the area. Just clearing out, making sure that there's no vision for him to start up this Scuttle Crab right as it spawns. And Denyk going in. And this is kind of the one thing that Sett support does a lot, and that's Hex Flash from the bush and try to EU. So it is very telegraphed, very predicted, but for now, Trick just fighting for this little objective. Razork going to contest him, though, and he knows he cannot face him in the 1v1, especially with Scuttle standing right there to stop the isolation damage.
Let's have a look at what Razork's path did, because I think it's super interesting. He went blue, enemy blue, into Grom. He then went to his red, then went to his blue, and then he immediately came all the way back for Scuttle Crab. And he's doing this knowing where he has priority. Now, admittedly, Misfits have 3 winning lanes right now because they have push in mid, push in top, push in bot. That's not resulting in significant CS advantages, but they do have priority, meaning that these Misfits laners can move first. Razork knows this, which means that should Trick be on his blue buff, hey, lo and behold, I can contest you because my laners get to move first. I also know I can challenge you on Scuttle Crab because my bot lane has push, my mid lane has push. And now he gets the second Scuttle Crab because, hey ho, I know that Trick is just forced to base because he has no camps left to clear. So Razork is getting everything in this early game right now, and he is absolutely dumpstering Trick because he has so much control and agency in the laning phase thanks to his powerful lane.
I mean, playing a Lee Sin, playing any early game champion where all of your lane matchups are winning and are able to find push just sounds like the greatest time imaginable.
Yeah.
Razork is on cloud 9 right now. He's having a great time. And for Kobbe and Denyk, they can just infinitely push this lane. Force Crownshot to last under tower, miss a few CS here and there because he cannot step forward.
Nope. And again, it's not resulting in significant CS discrepancies, right? I think props to SK, they're holding their own in the lanes, even though they don't have the ability to actually gain much control. But the biggest difference is now coming between the junglers. And Drakos, if you look at their levels, that's a pretty big yikes.
I would say a very big yikes when Limit is ahead of your Kha'Zix and XP. Not ideal is the simple way to phrase it. And of course, Kha'Zix definitely the more scaling champion in this matchup. Lee Sin known to be powerful early game, but just the sheer amount of camps that have been denied from Trick in the early game when his only focus really has been on farming is quite impressive from the side of Misfits, and is something that SK are going to have a hard time coming back from, because not only can Trick not reliably gank right now because he doesn't have pressure and it's too easy for Lee Sin to counter gank, he's also going to have a hard time getting the necessary camps to catch back up. So this is quite a brutal deficit.
It certainly is. And oh, look, we're already getting to see the Denyk Razork combo come back. This is what Misfits found a lot of success with last split, and now they're looking to invade once again. They want to take as much away from Trick as possible.
Well, Trick is going to secure that one.
All right, that was smart from Razork not to follow, because if he did, Trick would have jumped over the wall and Razork would have had to follow him, and he would have been in a situation where he's not happy. All Misfits want right now is the Drake. I think it's a smart play and just a great demonstration of how to utilize pressure within your early lanes. This is just a really cool jungling from Razork.
And you said outside of the jungle we weren't really going to see any big CS leads here, and that's credit to SK for not farming back, but this is where that value really starts to come in. This is where we do start to see Misfits really maximize what they're able to do here. As Trick is in one-shot territory because he's 2 level down, so that's a level 6 Syndra. That's not where you want to be. Luckily, he has challenging smite, so maybe not as easy for Febiven, but the constant move down, the pressure that's coming out from all of Misfits just to make sure this bot lane can continue to bully is quite impressive.
And like, this is the most feels bad man as a jungler, because you're afraid to enter your own jungle, because now, as you rightly said, there are champions that can just kill you if they happen to find you. And your laners can't collapse as easily because they're always being pushed back. So I think that Misfits have been given so much agency and control in this early game that they just get to do pretty much what they want. But again, I have to highlight the fact that it's not resulted in significant gold differences just yet. Razork has been able to build a pretty solid advantage over Trick, and you'll notice that the levels have now been able to close. And also, because Trick knows that his blue buff is being stolen, perhaps he can use this to get a bit of counter jungling off himself. So SK have done a good job of weathering the storm, and they haven't fallen prey to any early deaths or early major deficits. So props to them. Now they kind of need to maintain this as they transition into the mid game and look to utilize the fact that they have a pretty conventional front-to-back teamfight comp that will spike pretty hard at around 2 items.
And kind of just, it feels like the big questions are, how much can Misfits snowball off this early lead? Currently, it just looks like the Drake. Can they close it if they do get the snowball is the immortal question for Misfits. And on the opposite side for SK, can they just keep holding on? Because Ezreal eventually is going to be very difficult to lock down. For now, though, you can see that he is struggling a bit as Denyk and Kobbe just absolutely fearless. And I'm loving the phase rush in bottom lane against Yuumi, because she doesn't provide that extra damage. You don't necessarily need the extra tankiness, and it just means you cannot get away from Denyk without using that E.
Oh, man. This extremely muscular man just runs into your face and then punches you, and he's like, back off, cat.
Just a little boy and his cat. What are you doing? Whoa! Whoa, we've seen that one.
Yeah.
Fnatic?
Yeah, that, so the thing about Orianna's ult is it casts from where you activate the R. So it doesn't matter if
doesn't
Kha'Zix
follow you.
Yeah, it doesn't follow.
Through the air.
So you've got to wait for Kha'Zix to land the jump before you use R. And then, of course, the risk of that is the ball can teleport off him if he then suddenly jumps out of your range.
Also, Syndra can knock you back mid-air and deny the jump.
That's also true. So, yeah, Febiven, of course, does lose his flash, which is an advantage for SK. But Misfits now going to convert this into a Rift Herald because they swap the bot lane up towards top. Very standard, something that we've been seeing a lot of pretty much throughout the entire world at this point in the game. And yeah, Misfits feeling pretty comfortable for now.
Kobbe stepping up here, gonna look to grab a few more plates for himself. Doesn't want to do so quite yet. Of course, has not finished the Muramana or the Manamune yet, so can't really start actively stacking that too much. The Q spam is decent, but obviously he wants those extra autos just to make sure he can get to the upgrade as quickly as possible and evolve that Q. Very important to get that early Acathian Rain evolve if possible. And now Crownshot potentially caught unawares here. And Denyk, he's been here before. No, not going to go for the flash facebreaker. I was ready. I feel like if you're playing Sett support, you have to flash on cooldown or you're not taking your job seriously, maximizing Hex Flash value. That's
true. Yeah, no, I feel you. I know that you're a connoisseur of Hex Flash efficiency.
I've taken it on bad champions. I love it so much.
I will say, though, when we speak about Denyk, he was someone on Drakos that you mentioned during the draft that we wanted to keep track of and see how he's doing. And I do think that so far in this game, like, he's had a pretty solid performance in the 2 versus 2. And I believe it was amazing that said that he wasn't the lane dominant support.
Yeah, exactly. He was. They picked DOS because they felt like he was overall the upgrade to the 2v2 bot lane synergy, which felt important in a meta where it was so much about these AD carries. But then, of course, as we saw the struggles for Misfits later in the game, DOS is a young player. Amazing came out and he said, hey, look, like, you can't expect that guy to be your shot caller. Denyk has a little bit more experience, is a little bit more comfortable in that role, and so him coming back into the roster at this time, I think makes a lot of sense.
And I think that we're already seeing a lot of Denyk and Razork working together, and I think that that has resulted in the advantages that Misfits were able to gain in the early game. But now the big question mark will come around these mid-game moments. Ultimates are available, first items are starting to be completed, and Misfits, they want to maintain pure control over this Drake, which means that with it spawning in about 30 seconds, this is something that Misfits is already setting up for, and we need to see them push out mid, push out bot, get that vision control, get a little bit of deeper information, I feel, and then look to secure that one. Meanwhile, SK is still just kind of chilling. You know, they're ramping up, they're taking their time, no need to rush anything. And I think that forcing a Drake fight would not be ideal for them, but if they can get a Drake, they're definitely not going to complain.
And one of the things we always talk about is obviously Ezreal Yuumi is very strong, but you've talked about liking the Kha'Zix Yuumi combo, and now that the lane phase is slowly starting to end as some of these early towers get taken lower and lower, you're going to see more and more of that duo. And Trick, despite being put down for so long, despite still being in a CS deficit, is currently at the same level as Razork. Now, most certainly the Lee Sin is closer to level 8, but the fact that Trick has been able to claw his way back does mean that these fights aren't as cut and dry as they might have been earlier on for the side of Misfits.
You can see the Misfits right now trying to contest for this vision. The Drake is alive. There's just a lot of dancing around it right now. Let's have a look at the positioning of Jenax. Already started rotating through the river. Does have his ultimate up towards the top side as well, so he can use that. But he's going to go back up towards... Oh, they know.
Oh, suplex down. The flash out for ZaZee. Pulled back here.
Oh, ZaZee, that was clean.
He just didn't push the W. He didn't know. He didn't know all that damage was coming. The perfectly timed tower shot and dissonance combo from the Orianna.
Really well played there from ZaZee. I honestly thought that he was going to be sitting in a shop and he would just get one shot. But the moment he got ulted, he immediately flashed as well. When we get a replay of that, we can watch back how he was able to do it. But really well played there from ZaZee. SK now with a numbers advantage can start this Drake off.
Razork, though, still potentially has the ability to jump in there and steal, but it looks like Misfits do not want to pull the trigger on that one. Denyk is just respawning. Of course, very early respawn times this early on, and now it's individually tied up Drake, so denying one of the easiest ways to win a game for Misfits, which is the fast 4 Drake snowball.
Yeah, and I think that when we look at Misfits comp, you can see a lot of it was about utilizing lane dominance to be able to control these neutral objectives early on into the game, and they're going to throw this Rift Herald down towards the bot side of the map. I'm curious as to how much value they're actually going to get off the back of this, because there's still a lot of plates up here. So, like, you can see how Misfits, while having consistent dominant lane, yes, they created a difference in the jungle matchup, but in terms of the lanes, that's not really resulted in a lot.
No, not at all. Definitely not the ideal use of Herald. And we can see here, Vedius, the replay you asked for.
Cool panoramic as well. Our observer's hunting this. So.
He's taking him back to Season 2.
Oh, here he comes.
Oh my God, this is my favorite angle. Yeah. It's so anime, it hurts.
So Denyk, he comes in, flashes over the wall, but look how quick the flash is there from ZaZee. Then he brings him back into tower range.
Use the W, it wasn't enough.
It was beautiful.
All
really
according
well
to Kekaku. Well played, ZaZee.
Excellently done. So great stuff there from SK. And now, like, this has all of a sudden swung the momentum again. Even though Misfits sit with the gold advantage, SK, the fact that they've been able to maintain this gold gap pretty much the entire early game is like best case scenario for SK. Their tower plates weren't threatened outside of losing some to the Rift Herald. No matchups are like seriously far behind. Like, SK, they even got a Drake. So SK is like, we're cool. We're good. No worries.
We're chilling.
Yeah, we're chilling.
Okay, now there's one thing that I do want to point out that I find, one, especially hilarious, and two, kind of genius. Bot lane has double exhaust, which means that Kobbe, if he ever leaps his tiny void booty into the backline, he's not going to do any damage. That sucks. That's so annoying.
But also, like, that's a really great point for the 2 versus 2 as well. When we think about how many times they actually tried to force that, exhaust. It's just so obnoxious. You know, it's funny because I was thinking to myself this morning, I watched the LCK game. It was Sandbox versus Dynamics, right?
Shout out to Yamato,
yeah, got to support my homeboy, you know? Spam those tomatoes. But...
Oh, here we go. I like the combo trick into flash into secure.
There we go.
Oh, that's just too clean. There's nothing he can do. He's just a support. Leave him alone. No, the double kill for SK. They have to be feeling good after that one.
Oh, clean coming out from SK. Razork trying to get exhaust.
Broken spell. Riot, please.
Oh, man. But that's what I'm saying. Like, every time you try to go in, like... A cannon landed a 3-man ultimate this morning, exhausted, completely nullified. It's so powerful, and it mitigates so much dive. But speaking of dive, let's watch this from SK. So, here's the combo. Yuumi plus Kha'Zix, speedy duo. Invisible, Febiven, he noticed way too late. The flash comes in. This time ZaZee waits, and then the ultimate comes through. Yeah, Denyk is in the right place, but unfortunately, there's very little he can do to stop this one. And ZaZee now sitting on 3 kills.
Dang. And look, Vedius, when we talk about this matchup, I make one graphic every time. It's the Crownshot graphic, because that's the guy I talk about when I talk about SK. We didn't prep a ZaZee graphic, because we didn't know he could do this. But this man, 3-0, is murdering everyone.
I mean, I do feel that ZaZee is someone that's overall had a very solid debut to the split. And of course, because of the impressive performances of Larson and Humanoid, and even Caps, who has been a little bit inconsistent, it's still been difficult for some of our newer players in Milica and ZaZee to really break into the top 3. But when we look at some of our star mid laners in Europe, Febiven is also someone you always bring into question, because I think that he's still been very solid this split. But I really think that ZaZee is making a case for he is probably top 5 in terms of his performances so far this split. And I think that, you know, you got to look at it in the perspective. SK's sitting in 3rd place. I think that he's been very reliable. The meta has heavily favored him. I think that his Azir at the start of the split was very clean. And I think that he has been exactly what SK needed in order to kind of plug some of the issues that they had from last split.
And you love to see it when new mid lane talent rises up. At the start of the season, we were talking all about the bot lanes, but the mid laners clearly have been getting better. And it does make it more difficult for guys like Febiven and Nukeduck, older, more veteran players, to keep up when you've got all these new guys constantly pushing you, constantly pressuring you to stay at the top. So on the one hand, I'm sure Febiven's like, yes, I love the competition. On the other hand, it's like, there are no easy mid lane matchups left, or slowly at least slipping away in terms of overall talent in the LEC.
Man, like, it's crazy the number of young players. T1 today, drafting rookie mid laner as well, and he was popping off. Like, yeah, there's a lot of young talent right now fighting for those spots, and especially when we even look at our mid laners right now here in Europe, you know, Larson and Humanoids, just not that long ago were rookies that we were talking about up and coming, and now they sit at the top of the table. So, yeah, EU mids, man, maybe the meme isn't dead just yet. Anyway, both teams setting up for this Drake. Misfits right now want to prioritize it. They have the control over that. That means SK has to come into them. This is a much better situation for Misfits. Let's see how they handle it.
Big Sion out. Kobbe, where's he going to go? Is just going to walk around him. Definitely
big shockwave.
But that's going to be it. Massive damage now coming in. Trick is able to secure that one. The GP ult not nearly enough. Yuumi coming in just in time to provide a shield. ZaZee now on a rampage, and it is looking so good for SK now. Gold, yes, dead on even, but 2 more Drakes in their favor has to be nice.
Thing is, SK's comp, very straightforward. You go, right? You just go. And Misfits, every time they set up for these objectives, you can see how much harder it is for them to actually maintain control. Like, look at Sion. He's literally like, okay, out of my way. I know that you had control, but it now belongs to me. And 2 people are just stuck in the pit in a 2 versus 4, and there's very little that they can do about it. Like a good ultimate from Dan, but Jenax literally solo zones Kobbe off the fight. So, like, props to him. I think that even though he has 0 assists this game, his impact in that fight was huge.
And now, as the Kha'Zix starts to get stronger and stronger, Sion, of course, is going to have to optimize the Black Cleaver, but we're working towards a Duskblade on Trick, and if Febiven ever finds himself caught out, a similar story for Kobbe as well, although he has some good isolated damage too, it's going to be so impossible to survive Trick's damage output, especially with level 11 right around the corner. Crownshot, though, maybe in trouble in the mid lane. Does manage to grab a bit of gold here. He is going to get suplexed right back with the flash out safety combined with the E, the pullback. Now bringing him in, but the exhaust coming down just in time to heal. They don't need another exhaust because they cast them at the same time.
I think they exhausted Denyk twice. A bit of a panic one there. Maybe communication not on point.
Bam! Double exhaust. They don't stack if you're playing at home. That's not how it works.
No, he was, you know, but definitely 4 summoner spells were used there. So Denyk trading, I think it was 2 for 4, definitely a worthwhile trade for him, but SK will still walk away with the tower. They've now got themselves the gold lead as well. And while Misfits started off with some promising early jungle pathing, trying to put Trick behind, winning lanes, they haven't really been able to do much off the back of it. And now SK feels like they're starting to come into their own. They're in the driving seat right now, and you can see Orianna, wow, Oblivion Orb done, already working towards that next big item with a large rod in the inventory as well.
Yeah, is that it? We're going Spellbinder. We're going one fat one-shot in the middle of a team fight. And the good news for this team is between Sion ult and Yuumi ult, you have some pretty easy ways to not only deliver the ball through the Kha'Zix, but to make sure they're already locked down before the ball even gets there. So a lot of potential, as you said. Very simple strategy. Push your buttons at the same time together.
Yep. I mean, do you remember the back in the day where you're just like, oh, Jarvan Orianna? Well, the
How
classic...
many different characters can we strap an Orianna ball to?
Yeah. But these days, like, well, you can get pretty creative with what you can do with an Orianna ball.
We literally
now.
liked Orianna ball so much, we made a champion that is literally an Orianna ball. She's a cat, and she follows you around. We're strapping a cat to him and a ball to Trick. We're loading Trick up and we're throwing him into the back line and we're gonna see what happens.
I never thought of that. It's just like Yuumi looks at the Orianna ball and go, "Are you me, Papa?"
Is that you?
And it's a ball. It's like a cat playing with a ball. So many layers.
So perfect. The Stitch Orianna skin, where it is actually a ball of string. It's so perfect, ZaZee. You missed an opportunity. I love toys too, but you thrust out. This is how we knew that the games weren't going to be as good this week. The teams really letting us down on this game.
Who knew that champion design had so many layers to it, you know? Anyway.
Hey, production's playing us off, as you can see. Coming up next is OG versus Mad. It's going to be a banger. Can OG recover? Can Mad retain dominance after some difficult losses in the previous week? But the big thing that I wanted to kind of shift our attention back to is that there are still some big scaling elements on the side of Misfits. Dan, of course, has been kind of quiet in this game, but he is level 13 now at GP. That's going to be a big break point. He finished the coal, he sold it, he's on the way to his second item, so we do have to keep our eyes on those barrels because that is one way to turn around a fight back in the favor of Misfits.
You can see that the Spellbinder now done for Febiven as well. The Mana Mune slowly upgrading for Kobbe. Crownshot already with that upgraded, working towards the Death Dance as well. I think it's going to be really difficult for Kobbe to really play out these fights. We'll see. I think that, you know, again, I was talking to some pros and they were talking about how Kai'Sa is difficult to play in the current meta because it feels like there's few things that can really dive alongside her, and there are many supports that can run things like the exhaust to just stamp her out every time that she dives in.
It's crazy. So, the summoner spell, it's available to every champion of the game. How do they keep getting it?
There are some champions that it just feels awkward, or some situations where you can't always run the exhaust, but especially with a Yuumi, there's no reason for her not to run an exhaust, right? Especially when she doesn't need to run the flash. And because she can run heal, I mean, the irony is typically you go heal ignite, but they just double down. So every time Kobbe tries to ult in, there should in theory always be an exhaust available for him.
And as we see Misfits, you know, setting up a little bit here, just trying to be ready to contest this Ocean Drake as they set up on the bottom side. You know, it's difficult to kill Crownshot. Ezreal gets so much damage and tanky stats with this Iceborne Gauntlet into Death Stance build. So we'll see if Kobbe can shred through him. Ginsu's going to give him a lot of percentage shred for both the armor and the MR. But Crownshot and SK have now started this one up. They're going to pull it back. The Scuttle Crab will fade away, so no movement speed boost. But we do need to keep our eyes on the Sion ult as well as the GP. Dan going to throw his ult down. Immediately we're going to have the response coming out. Febiven is going to sidestep there, and the Trick not able to secure with this might. He's stealthed up, and he's now trying to run out. The Yuumi's going to bury him to safety. Crownshot taken down, though. ZaZee now in trouble, and Misfits, just like that, they've turned the fight. That's the shutdown that they were waiting for, and SK picked a bad time to battle Misfits.
Yeah, that's actually a huge team fight for Misfits, because now they can go straight towards the Baron. Trick is still alive, but losing ZaZee and Crownshot, your two biggest damage dealers, means that this should be a very difficult objective for SK to contest.
This is Smite. Of course, Kobbe's going to shred through this one very quickly. We've got a GP there as well. Febiven won't do a ton of damage, but they should be able to clear this one out with a lot of confidence here. Ocean as well, just for a bit of additional healing. And Trick now going to be in trouble as Razork chases him down. Febiven zoning him out as well. Just hops right back into the pit. Big barrels, but Trick on the outside. He lost the dragon. A little bit of redemption opportunity here if he can get in and steal the Baron. But no, he's been locked up, and Kobbe immediately goes in. The exhaust's going to go down, and Trick is going to be able to make it out with the Baron. Not going to be stolen away by Crownshot. Trick has to flash out to safety, and Misfits, just like that, turn the game back in their favor.
It's crazy how that fight played out, because again, we were talking about that this should be easier to execute for SK. So let's see where things went so wrong. Well, the first thing is Razork with a really good kick here onto Trick, separating him from the Dragon, allowing them to secure this. Notice now that Jenax is also out of the fight, but it's this flank from Denyk and Kobbe, with the cat also sitting on top of I'm talking nonsense right now. The fact that Denyk got in behind and was able to lock up Crownshot with the cat sitting on top of Kha'Zix meant that Crownshot wasn't getting the same peel. Remember, he doesn't have his flash because it was expended earlier, which meant that with him going down, it then made it easier for Misfits to actually get the collapse down onto ZaZee as well.
And I think it's just SK were not as diligent in their vision control setup because they did not see Denyk coming over the wall. They did not see Kobbe coming over the wall. So Crownshot stepped into his own death, thinking that they were going to fight a front-to-back team fight when Denyk and Kobbe were actually on the flank.
I think it's also worth noting that SK just sat in the GP ultimate too for that whole fight. Like, while they were setting up that Drake, Dan just dropped it.
I mean, that's a 3k damage GP.
You can see that he was just getting so much value from that. And that obviously set up Misfits for success as well. So yeah, like, I would say that like poorly executed fight there from SK, because it felt like they tunnel visioned on the Drake and it made it very easy for Misfits to find this flank. Now SK back on the attack.
Ezreal going to come in, Denyk going to flash out. Nimbus Cloak going to ferry him to safety, and SK fishing for the pick will not find anything. Using a lot of ultimates there, but in the meantime, Misfits are just going to use this Baron to snowball their gold lead as much as possible. 3k for now in their favor as they take down a lot of these standing objectives. Most certainly tier 2s are next, but not enough pressure across the map for them really to start pushing in too aggressively here. Of course, itemization check-in. We do have the Spellbinder for both carries now. Febiven finally has the tier 2 boots. Big advantage in terms of the Oblivion Orb over to the Orianna. But as we saw in last fight, if they can't get the setup for SK, the Ori not nearly as effective as it was earlier on in the game.
Right now, just a lot of hovering around because... Oh, excuse me. Ooh,
right as you say that, Cast or Curse, they're now committing onto Denyk, but now Kobbe's going to the backside. Crownshot going to go golden. Managed to flash out of that one. GPL going to zone the way, but Razork's coming over the wall. Misfits are finding constant angles to try to shut down Crownshot. Razork not going to commit again. Crownshot taking some risky paths here, but doesn't want to put himself between the turret and the wall, knowing he will get Syndra stunned. So Misfits holding on to priority in the mid lane. Big Q coming in from Jenax just to clear it away, and Misfits don't have any follow-up yet.
And it ends up being an advantage gained for SK, because one of the biggest things that Misfits wanted to take with that Baron buff was that mid tier 1. Against an Orianna, her wave clear is very strong, and it can be difficult to set up that siege, especially when your Kai'Sa is relatively low range. So the fact that they got picked off before Misfits could properly set up for that objective means that SK now have a lot more time that they can sit there and buy. So while this is definitely a good swing for Misfits and they're feeling a lot more comfortable, they weren't quite able to get what they wanted, which was this mid-tier 1.
A surprisingly close game, given how decisive the early game was for SK, how good that fight was for Misfits, but overall not the biggest gold lead, all things considered. And looking at the itemization coming out, we now got Kobbe. He's going to have the triple evolve for the Kai'Sa with all 3 items there. That's going to be huge, as well as the upgraded Muramana. He's going to be terrifying to deal with. But of course, on the opposite side, we're memeing it a little bit, but double exhaust is a big deal. If there's ever a fight where Kobbe, there's not an exhaust available for Kobbe, he will murder Crownshot. The downside is that there's 2. And so far, the timings have been pretty favorable outside of that 1 double exhaust usage to always have one available to trade with Kobbe's ult.
I think that ZaZee also needs to be really careful, because in the event that he ever gets dived on, he doesn't have the stopwatch anymore. So we'll see. We'll see how they play this one out. The next Drake is obviously going to be a big point of contention. Both teams are definitely going to want to fight for this because it then puts them on soul point. But you can see that for now, SK controlled the objective, trying to utilize these brushes. Drake looking for a pick.
Potentially caught out here. Big damage, though, coming in. They get a little bit of vision. That's the knockup coming in over the wall from Jenax. It's pretty clutch, of course. Shockwave going to be dodged away from Crownshot, going to get a perfect shot, but ZaZee's going to find the kill in the end. Jenax now looking for the follow. Febiven incredibly low. The suplex back. Denyk just buying time for the rest of his team. Kobbe cannot go in, and SK taking the fight there. Good use of the Kha'Zix and the Yuumi.
Wow, so SK went on the offensive there. They noticed that as Misfits was looking to contest, instead they tried to attack them in the rotation. So they were able to spot out where Febiven was, and Razork just overcommits there. He lands that kick, he then dives into multiple members, and immediately SK collapse onto him. This then gives them their 3rd Drake of the game, and now it feels like that the game has suddenly swung back into the hands of SK.
And it feels just like the right play coming from SK. SK recognizing what they needed to do, because so far, the fight that went wrong... Oh, never mind. There's Trick. He's gone. Bye-bye. Right as I was about to pray.
So we're juggling a little bit this game, you know?
On the one hand, good job. They recognize that this team comes really good when it gets to dictate the pace, when it finds the flank. So if we attack it first, they can't do that. On the other hand, didn't respect that they're still all very strong at this point of the game, and you are a squishy Kha'Zix without the cat attached.
Yes, you are. That is definitely true. Of course, it's not going to mean a huge amount, so even though Misfits do find that pick, at the end of the day, SK will not really lose a huge amount as a result of it. So Misfits, if they could get this mid-tier 1, it'd be really big for them, but Orianna's just going to show back up in the mid lane. With the numbers advantage, maybe Misfits could try something, but...
And it's crazy that they had a Baron and they did not get mid-tier 1.
Yep. It's all because they found that pick onto Denyk. Like, it just eliminated so much pressure that Misfits had, because he's so much of the threat when it comes to these fights.
Very, very true. Now, of course, as we get later, you noted it earlier, Vedius, it's now Soul Point for SK, so they have the ability to choose between the two objectives, Baron or Soul Point. Misfits are kind of forced to respond to that Soul Point to try and take that away. That said, Misfits members are just continuing to get stronger. 3-item Kobbe has not had a chance to use those items in a fight yet, but he surely will be terrifying. That said, Death Stance on the opposite side, fitting for Crownshot, has to be hurting Misfits. They really would have liked to find a fight in that small window before Crownshot finished another major item. But Dan finishing a 3rd item does mean that things could be shifted right back in their favor, especially with it finally seeing some healing reduction come out from the side of Misfits. There was none prior to this.
True, very true. The GP ultimate is going to be really big when it comes to applying all that and overall being a nonsense.
Nuisance?
Yes.
A nonsense? Sure.
Nonsense, also a word.
Yeah. Good word.
But you're right, nuisance is the word.
Does describe a lot of the double exhaust action we're seeing. It is some nonsense, right, please?
Syndra's top right now.
Here we go. That's going to be the triple onto Dan. He's going to throw it back. They are going to miss the shockwave there as the flash will come out from Dan, and Trick going to be forced back. But SK still trying to find these windows of opportunity to force the engage.
Febiven just hit 16, so the fact that Misfits were able to avoid that fight is really good. Oh, it looked like he was going to recall, so I thought he was just going to go back to base and buy the Void Staff. It's really interesting that he's going Void Staff.
Does he go Morello's? There's a lot of healing right now. I mean, Yuumi alone.
Maybe, but...
There's not a lot of MR outside of the Sion. I don't know what he thinks he's
gone. Yeah, so...
Void Staff, okay.
I mean, like, sure, Ezreal has a lot of MR. Yuumi
True. I've read about that.
Has a lot of MR, yeah. And then you also have the MR and Jenax. So I guess he's assuming that he's not going to be able to hit ZaZee. So we'll see. Anyway, Baron being started off by Misfits. This has often been a situation that Misfits have, you know, thrown games before. So let's see how they play this one out.
Could be really ideal for them if they can find a fight where people are fighting into Dan, but the rest of the team is nowhere nearby as Denyk goes in. Still, they might be able to turn the fight because Kobbe jumps to the backside. He's taking down one. He's looking to find another. Crownshot coming over the wall, trying to turn it right back. Jenax there to body block. Trick makes it out to safety. He's ticking, he's down. Kobbe gets another one, and that's going to be it for Crownshot. Febiven smiting him down, and Misfits, they're going to lose one in the process, but they're going to be more than happy with the trade here. Jenax is going to go into zombie mode, but he's not going to find any kills, and Misfits can just turn right back to mid-tier 1, to the Baron, to the Dragon, if it was up. In the meantime, just a clean fight for Misfits.
And the fans wanted to see Denyk back in the roster, and this is why. That engage from him was spectacular, locking up some of the crucial carries, allowing Kobbe to dive onto the backline. Just keep your eyes on Denyk in this fight and his target selection. Using the ultimate on the Sion to jump onto ZaZee, forcing his flash out, then gives Kobbe the opportunity to dive onto the backline. Now, there's only, well, of course there's still Trick, but he also gets melted by Kai'Sa. But then with them gone, it's just a straight up front to back that Misfits can easily clean up. And like, Jenax is useless in this fight. That front line just got completely ignored. And it all came off the back of the way in which Denyk started off that fight.
And also the fact that the Kai'Sa pick came out, because we saw a similar engage from the Leona on DOS last week where the team was not in position to follow up. The Kai'Sa, you're always in position to follow up as long as that CC connects. So honestly, just fantastic team play coming out from Misfits. We also saw Razork leaping in to stand next to Kobbe to deny the isolated damage for Trick, letting him live for 2 or 3 more seconds, which is big, but now we've got another fight. The Sion will not connect. Trick off to the backside, big shockwave, but it's only gonna hit one. Kobbe still untouched for now, dealing as much damage as possible, but Crownshot isolated, kicked over the wall. Kobbe shredding through Jenax, the front line. Now gone for SK. They have to be on the retreat. They're going to have to give up some major objectives for this one. And right as the ocean is spawning, a Miracle Steel still could give them the soul, but with Trick dead, it just does not seem like.
Really good E from Febiven there to stop Trick from jumping onto Febiven's face, who was honestly isolated away from his team. If he had gone down, this would have been the 4th Drake for SK, but they hold on. They're coming out ahead in these fights, and you can see how so much of these fights are coming down to execution. But let's this time keep an eye on how Febiven plays this fight out, because Trick just dives in. Misfits split up and he's like, I found my target, there it is. The knockback means that Trick can't commit and Febiven can just disengage. Crownshot then finds himself isolated, but he then gets kicked out, and now all of a sudden, Jenax is 1 versus 4 as Misfits just melts through the front line. So Misfits just getting better and better at how they play these fights out and how they're reacting to SK trying to engage with this Kha'Zix Yuumi combo.
And what a 180-degree turn for Misfits. To go from clean early games and nothing else in previous weeks to clean execution in these fights, good use of cooldowns, the Febiven E, the scat of the week into Denyk's Facebreaker, just to make sure that the Trick could not go anywhere. Because if that combo connects, Febiven's instantly dead. You know that has to be a one-team fight from SK. But now with a GP getting stronger, a Syndra getting stronger, a Kai'Sa who's so damn strong and so hard to lock down, they're going to need more exhausts, Betty. I don't know if 2 are enough. That's an 8K gold lead, and they're now setting up for the next major objective. It's going to be soul point for both teams. They've only got 50 seconds left on the Baron, but Misfits have to be feeling good.
Yeah, and for SK now, if they want to stand a chance, it's all going to come down to ZaZee and that Shockwave. They're going on to Dandan.
Of course, very isolated. Dandan still trying to manage that as one BBGP. Not enough exhausts! I'm going to say it again. Dandan running him down, and that is one strong. That's why we say GP's a scaling champion, by the way, for anyone wondering.
Wow. 1 versus 3. Dandan just holds his ground and says, I am the captain of this ship. Unbelievable. The exhaust was not going to help him there. 2 exhausts thrown at him. He doesn't care. Misfits now looking to break into the base.
Should be a pretty easy setup for Misfits. Maybe ZaZee can find the combo with Crownshot gone. That's so much of their damage. Trick getting poked out as well. Kobbe shredding through him. Trick's more worried about getting isolated by Kai'Sa at this point than Kobbe is by getting isolated from Kha'Zix.
That's true. You can see the inhibitor going to go down. The Baron will run out, but Misfits, they're going to get a lot off that. I respect that SK have been trying to be very proactive in the fights that they've taken. A lot of them, I think, have made sense, but it's just come down to how Misfits have executed. And of course, that Gangplank part was just, you know, Dandan doing some Gangplank things. So the first thing is that Dandan is not isolated here, right? So Trick isn't going to get all that bonus damage, but what's crucial is notice this ultimate, the center of it lands onto both Crownshot and Trick, so already he's in a great position. Then this barrel comes through, lands another crit, and imagine he wasn't exhausted twice.
Look at Trick just run. Oh man, that's
late game Gangplank against squishy targets. Steraks also hugely valuable there.
You're so confident in this Crownshot that you ult in the face of GP, just get hit by the Death's Daughter in the center of the ult and a barrel against an exhausted GP. You lose 70% of your health, and at that moment your jungler and your support go, nah bro, we'll try it again another time. We'll see you later. Sorry about that one. Good luck in the fountain. Enjoy your gray screen. We'll try again later.
It's like that. It's like that thing. Hey, is it okay if we kill your isolated top laner? No. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.
Okay, well, we just wanted to ask minions if you wanted to just walk away from him for a second, but that's cool. That's fine.
That's fine.
It's fine.
All right, well, Dragon Soul now on the cards. Misfits are going to look to secure that objective. Still, that, of course, with the top inhibitor going down, this is the best case scenario for Misfits, but the Drake's still a minute and a half away, still a lot of time. SK can just clear out their minions, then look to gain a little bit of control over their jungle. One of the biggest things that SK is struggling with right now is not only the item discrepancy, you'll notice that Kai'Sa full build, whereas Ezreal's still working on the 4th item, but also a level discrepancy. Level 17 for Kobbe right now, level 17 for Razork. Like, that's crazy. The fact that jungler's level 17, you often don't see that.
Yeah, a lot of games they don't even make it to level 18.
Yep.
More often than not. We'll see if Razork can find it. Level 16, level 15, actually, usually I feel like where a lot of them end up. Trick! Ouch.
That hurt.
Ouch. Here's the thing. SK cannot afford to lose another member. 54 seconds away, but we're 37 minutes into the game. So if they lose a member here, they'll probably just lose the fight because they will not have enough time to respond to this vision. But with Misfits having absolute pressure top, mid, and bot lane, SK aren't going to have enough time to set up the vision necessary, and that's when Kobbe gets to sneak into the back line, Denyk gets to flash or hex flash over a wall, and that is the worst situation for SK to fight into. And as you noted previously, that's when Jenax is completely useless. Febiven now fishing for a bit of a play here. Jenax not going to take too much damage. Adaptive health.
Like any damage.
Yeah, going to mitigate any kind of follow-up. The Soul Furnace used just to block a bit of damage there. And Kobbe caught out. They've taken away the spell shield. That's going to be big. Kobbe goes golden. Denyk now trying to come in. Trick wants to finish this one off. They're desperate. They just want to take him down. Can they finish it? Kobbe, he flashes back into the shockwave. Massive shutdown for ZaZee, and this is huge. Crownshot still alive. Dunking back down, but Dandan does so much damage. Jenax in the back line with Denyk. He's going to close it out slowly, walking away. Dissonance. Gonna create some space. SK gonna be happy with taking out a single member, trading, but the jungler is still alive for the side of Misfits.
And that's the most crucial thing with this objective on the line. Misfits have Smite, SK don't. Also, look at the top lane, TP coming through.
It's gonna take like 4 autos for Dandan to cancel the TP. Febiven, you madman! He takes it away, and no, Dandan, they have to finish this one out. They need to get out of this, but they don't get a Baron-empowered recall. That's gotta be it. SK are betting it all on this one. Yes, they've taken down the Dragon, but Dandan is ending the game. Dandan is not happy.
TP coming through, though.
Can you one-shot the GP before he ends the game? Base race, running him down. ZaZee, one more auto, burning, ticking, shut down. Soul for SK. They stay alive in the game.
What the hell? How is SK still alive in this game? That should have been it. Misfits should have been able to end it there. Razork misses out on the smite. SK's able to get back to their base and keep the Nexus alive. And as you say, Drakos, SK is sitting with the Ocean Drake right now.
What?
This is European League of Legends right now, Drakos.
I feel like it's been a while since we've had a good pace race.
Yeah. All right, well, let's look back and see exactly what happened. So first thing, immediate teleport. Sion tries to match, but then gets interrupted by Febiven. He throws his ultimate out there, which is pretty crucial. Now notice as well, Dandan doesn't actually have any minions when he's sieging onto those towers, which means that he can't take it as quickly as he wants. Gotta come back to that later, because Baron is being started.
Just keep flipping the coin, boys. Eventually it'll come out heads. Let's go. They got one. Can SK find one more? Razork gonna try to find a way in the pit. Will be difficult to burst against ZaZee. Febiven, we've seen a Syndra steal a Baron before. Maybe they can get it done. Trick, this is your moment to shine, but no! Razork gets it! Instantly the turn right back, though. Misfits have committed so many members of the pick. Turn off to the other side of the wall. Febiven just getting ripped down, but Kobbe jumps to the back line. Limit gonna be in trouble. He goes right back over the wall. Kobbe's trapped on the opposite side. He can't do anything else.
Wait!
Oh.
But SK won the team fight. So wait, what's Kobbe gonna? No, Kobbe, no. You definitely don't want to do that. Okay, so to recap, Misfits got Baron, SK won the team fight. Oh, wow. Okay.
Do we really want to, should we go back to the beginning? Recap, someone was winning, then they threw it back, then the other team threw it back, then they threw it back, and now SK got the Baron soul. What is this game?
Let's have a look, So, Crownshot's in the pit, but he's not tanking it right now. Trick is tanking it. The huge shield's coming out from the Orianna ball. Can we get a slow down here, please, observers? Nice and slow. Let's see how this one plays out.
Trying to stick
Razork goes in. Oh! That was a lot of damage.
That's the execute.
That's the execute, and then just the burst from Febiven onto Crownshot. Doesn't even need the ultimate. Then the shockwave does come through from ZaZee. Now, respect to ZaZee, his positioning is pretty good because he's not at any danger. Meanwhile, Trick is then assisting the execution of Febiven, and then you think Limit's in danger, but no, he can then jump back into the pit, and then they kill Denyk. Meanwhile, Gangplank wasn't really in this fight at all. Wow, okay, so that was a really crazy. Dandan did not get the Baron, crucially. So there's only one Baron sitting on Misfits right now. Ocean Drake is in the back, Ocean Soul rather, is in the pocket of SK. And they're looking to siege now. Oh, also, SK's tier 3 tower bot lane also died.
Okay, they got one objective left.
This game could literally go either way, and SK starting the fight.
Big engage, gonna try to stop Denyk from getting anything done. The CC's enough. They shut him down before he get anything there, and Trick's now immediately jumping to the backside, zoning them off. No one else is gonna follow. It's 3 minutes to the Elder, but SK now have permission to run down mid lane, or so they think. Misfits, very sneaky, moving into the bottom side of the map. Setting up here, we got one Dark Sphere from Febiven. He can drop another to try to set up for a good ultimate, but Jenax tries to come over the wall. Doesn't quite get the ankle right on that one, and now Trick waiting in the
SK
darkness.
looking for the collapse now. Jenax knows that he's in the brush. Look at Trick. He's trying to come in from behind, cut off the escape route, but Misfits just going to attack.
Oh, eyes on Crownshot. He's getting isolated. He's getting taken down. The rest of the team isn't around. They were trying to flank, but they're getting outflanked now by SK. ZaZee, can he do it? He has to turn this one back, but Kobbe, he's got the spell shield up and available. Trick's got half health. He'll get one shot if he leaps into that team.
It's all up to ZaZee here. He is the one that has to save this game for SK.
Can he do it? Eyes on the ball. Where's it going to go? Jenax, that's big! Shockwave's going to hit two, but it's not enough. Look at Dandan. He's dancing around. He's laughing straight to the bag, and that's all you need. One more auto. Misfits find the win.
Oh, what an intense ending. After that Sion ult hit, I thought that Shockwave was just going to kill them all.
In your eyes, right?
Oh, my word. I thought the SK were going to be able to turn that one around. But what an insane back and forth game. Whew. We had a very clean game to start the day. We had a chaotic game for game 2. We're in for an action-packed day here at the LEC, but Misfits versus SK, and a much-needed win for Misfits. Huge props to Denyk. So many of the plays that he made, like, admittedly, he died a lot this game, right? Like, he got caught out a lot. Some of his plays didn't work out, but that never slowed him down. He was constantly looking for engages, and I feel like a lot of the plays that he made were a big part of why Misfits were able to find so many successful fights.
And a frustrating game for SK to be sure. Both teams have felt like could have won the game at multiple different points, but it was Misfits who came out on top in the end. And your key player of the game, you can vote for Dan, Razork, or Kobbe. All good options. I'm inclined to give it to the Kai'Sa. She led back so many times, but it's really up to you at home. Coming up next, we're going to see if Mad Lions can secure their spot in the playoffs as they face off against a struggling OG.
Yar hard, diddly. You thought you could.
Here we'll see what the breakdown is after this, and that's going to be Perks on the backside, getting knocked low. The heal not nearly enough, and now Wonder comes in, but he might be too little too late. Just has to flash out to safety. Volbear alting away, and OG showing up just in time.
Pretty confident we're gonna make it to playoffs, and we're gonna be much scarier team in best of 5 than in best of 1.
But Arome, look at that damage. That's what you want from your Renekton. They put all their gold into his back pocket, and it's finally paying off. Reckless running for the hills, and Fnatic gift wrapping a Baron for the Mad Lions.
Origin usually just doesn't have the same amount of synergy they had before. Right now, I feel like that kind of got lost. It just feels like they're not really like playing as a team.
But you know, FC Barcelona players eat veggies.
No, they don't.
Hey guys.
That's a sponsor, Dad.
I think it will be a tough one, but we are ready.
What? Come on.
Do you still have those carrots?
Of course I do.
Getting them to eat healthy takes a long time. Beko Harvest Fresh preserves vitamins for longer by simulating the natural 24-hour sun cycle. Beko, eat like a pro.
back, everyone, and welcome to the Beko Live Like a Pro interview. I have an awesome guest with me right now. It is the performance manager for the Mad Lions, Jake. Welcome, Jake.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm great, thank you. I'm really happy that I get to talk to you. As I read up about you, you are a trained osteopath, and you've also worked with MMA fighters as well as rugby players, and now you are helping out with the Mad Lions and with the pro gamers. Can you kind of outline the differences in approach between those two types of athletes?
I guess as it's not as physical as some of these other things. There's differences in approaches, but what I've been trying to do is bring the knowledge that's been around in some of these other sports for a while and apply it over to esports, because it's something that hasn't really been focused on for the vast majority of gamers. They're not really thinking about their health. They're not thinking about exercise. They're not thinking about sleep. They're not thinking about breathing. So I'm taking all of my experience managing injuries, managing some of the problems in other sports, and applying all of that knowledge here in the esports field so we can optimize the performance over here.
Fantastic. Let's talk about a couple of those things. And obviously something that has become more apparent, because it's always been the case, but is the fact that it's of course not too healthy to just sit in your chair for large portions of the day, even if you're balancing that out with physical exercise. What do you focus on specifically when it comes to that position that the players are in for large portions of the day, and the way they have to use their wrists and their hands when they're playing?
So the amount that they're sitting down is inevitable. So we can't avoid sitting down at all. And there's studies done on using standing desks versus sitting desks. And the more difficult task that you're taking part in, the more focus that you need, generally perform better whilst you're sitting. So whilst we're playing on the computer and trying to focus on this optimal performance in game, they're gonna have to sit down. So what we spend time outside of the game doing is counteracting all of that time that they're spending sitting down in a chair. So the other thing that we're looking at avoiding is tendonitis, as that's a common problem that people tend to get in their forearms from playing a lot. So a lot of management of injuries around the wrist. So we do a lot of wrist strengthening, wrist mobility exercises, loosening off some of the muscles in the forearms, and then a real focus on opening up the thoracic spine, and which is like the middle part of your spine where your rib cage is, to counteract all this time that we often end up spent rounded off when we're sitting at the computer. So a lot of pulling type exercises in the gym, a lot of mobility exercises, plenty of breathing exercises as well to get those ribs moving, as this is often stiffens up as it changes our breathing posture when we're sitting down, hunched over for the vast majority of the day.
Yeah, I think good tips for everyone that's watching as well to kind of live by, assuming that they're sitting a lot. What I also found interesting is that when I was looking at some YouTube videos, you have one where it's kind of like a montage of you cracking like the backs of the players and the necks, and it's kind of scary, but it's also necessary, of course. How many times a day or a week does that happen, like when you individually train with these players?
So it's on a need-to-need basis. So not all of the players like having their back cracked. Some of them absolutely love it. But I give them treatments once a week, once every 2 weeks, depending on injuries or what we're managing. And if there is any injuries that we are managing at the time, we might increase that to a few times a week, 3, 4, 5 times a week, just to keep them in tip-top condition and stop it from tipping over to from a niggle to a real injury and something that prevents them from playing.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Another thing I would like to talk about is, of course, the physical body is so important, but so is the mental aspect of how these players are feeling. And we know that they're under tremendous pressure for these very, very young people. What does the approach look like to make sure that they're as comfortable as possible and that they feel helped in that regard as well in the Mad Lions?
So I work closely with Martina, and she's the sports psychologist here at Mad Lions. So we are part of the performance team. So we work together closely to keep on top of the players' both mental and physical well-being. So we look at stress management. We do meditation regularly with the players, breathing exercises. We introduce things like how to communicate better, how to talk about your emotions, how to give and receive feedback. These are all topics that we're covering with the players and helping them develop not only as players inside the game, but individuals outside of the game, giving them tools to manage not only their external world, but internal too, as this is how we experience the world. It's what's going on inside our head. And sometimes if you can tell yourself a different story about what's happening, it can massively impact how you experience life. So it's sort of giving them the tools and tips that I found out along the way of managing my own mental health issues, various injuries that I've had in the past. These are all tools that I've come across that have been useful. Things like journaling, things like meditation, things like mindfulness, breathing exercises. These all can make a dramatic difference to your life. And I guess it's taking an approach of what is the thing that we can do that requires the least amount of time and effort to get the maximum amount of results. So what each person needs is going to be very different, but constantly looking to make little incremental change. So just how can we be better each day?
Yeah, a bit of min-maxing also when it comes to the health, if we put any gamer terms. Thank you so much, Jake. This was super insightful. I wish we could talk for a little bit longer, but this was super helpful, and good luck in the rest of the season.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back.